Welcome everyone to today's webinar, Smart Design, Better Living, Reducing Carbon and Elevating Wellbeing. I'm Ellie Savage, I'm a Policy Officer at the IES and I'll be hosting the webinar today. So quick bit of housekeeping, your cameras and microphones should be automatically switched off, but please do feel free to put any comments or say if you're having any technical issues in the meeting chat. As always, there'll be a chance for questions at the end of the presentation, so please do submit these in the Q&A option at any point during the presentation. I will then ask those on your behalf later. Using the Q&A option means that others can vote on your questions, so it's really helpful for me as I can see which ones are the most popular. So this webinar is being hosted by the Environmental Policy Implementation Community, or EPIC, at the IES. I'll pop some links in the chat in a sec. So if you want to find out more about EPIC, you can do so. But just to let any local authority officers in the room know that you are all able to join EPIC for free. So I'd really recommend checking it out if you are a local authority officer. But on to the topic at hand, this webinar will explore how specialist design in acoustics, lighting and indoor air quality can play a vital role in enhancing wellbeing while also presenting opportunities to reduce whole life carbon. I'm really delighted to have three experts from Cundall to talk to us today: Colin O'Connor, Jenny Carrington and Natalia Duffy. Colin O'Connor leads the Cundall London Acoustics team and has more than 15 years experience, primarily focused on environmental acoustics, and has previously held advisory roles to the Thames Tideway Tunnel and Heathrow expansion projects. Colin is a full member of the IES and also the Institute of Acoustics and is an incorporated engineer and a chartered environmentalist. Jenny Carrington works as an associate air quality consultant and has been co-leading the Cundall air quality team since 2020. She is a chartered scientist and has 18 years experience working in the environmental sector in all areas of air quality and odour assessments. She is also a member of the IES and is also a member of the IAQM, our Institute of Air Quality Management. And finally, Natalia Duffy is a lighting designer with extensive experience in delivering design for a wide range of exterior and interior projects in the field of master planning and public realm, commercial and residential developments, education, transport and industry, and sports and leisure across the Middle East and North Africa, the UK, Europe and Asia. So without any further ado, I will now hand over to Colin.
Okay, thank you, Ellie. Nice introductions. Yeah, hello to everyone on the webinar today. Yeah, so just to introduce ourselves, it's myself, Natalia, and Jenny from Cundall. So we're three associates from the acoustics, lighting, and air quality teams. So the idea of today is, yeah, looking at acoustics, lighting, and air quality, how it fits into kind of building and design for occupants of internal spaces. A lot of our focus is on the office and workspace environment, but we'll provide some case studies of where we've done some quite intricate design with a focus on well-being, but showing also how it ties into lower carbon design and reducing embodied carbon, kind of how it all ties together in a holistic approach. So topics we'll be looking at today is, yeah, introduction on kind of our view and our approach to reducing carbon emissions. Then we'll move on, look at some case studies about acoustics, then lighting, who Natalia will present for lighting, and then air quality, for which Jenny will present. And then we'll kind of sum it all together and kind of show how do we combine it all together, what's kind of the structured approach for that. And then we'll finish off with the summary, and then we'll be open for Q&A after that. So yeah, reducing carbon emissions. So at Cundall, we have a Zero Carbon Design 2030, or ZCD or ZCD 2030, which is a global initiative. So we aim to engage everyone at Cundall. So that's every office, every discipline, every level, to really help clients achieve whatever their zero carbon goals may be. And it's embedded as one of our core pillars, and it's a non-negotiable part of our strategy. And large reason for this, it's the built environment is responsible for nearly 40% of the world's carbon emissions. So it's imperative that we work together as an industry to take responsibility for our emissions and work to eliminate them. So and what we've got at the moment is, yeah, we're looking to align all of our projects with our zero carbon design criteria by the end of 2030. Now, it's a challenging target, but I think first and foremost, we generally see it as our duty to create a more sustainable future for our planet. Now, what we've got at the moment, we've set ourselves interim targets to measure the progress, and this is split discipline by discipline. So acoustics, lighting, air quality will all have separate interim targets and milestones of how we're doing that. So as part of our milestones, we had our last milestone was in December, and this was the initial first step, which is for each of us as specialist designers, specialist niche disciplines, is to really provide this discipline-specific guidance on all our projects of kind of, you know, what's the approach we're going to take to lower embodied carbon in our designs, or operational energy along with that too. And then we've got an upcoming milestone in 2027 where we're looking to actually set numbers to these targets. So and that's based on science-based targets for all the designs. And then on to the end milestone. Of course, it's an ongoing journey and it'll never end. But the idea is, yeah, December 2030 to have all our projects meeting our zero carbon design criteria. So we've got 7 steps that we look across all our projects on how to do it. It's a step-by-step process. There's no real hierarchy in which one is more important because it depends on each discipline, kind of where they can interject. But these are kind of the 7 steps that we usually look. I know from an acoustics point of view, we generally look at passive design optimization. You know, then steps 5 and 6 is looking at, can we limit the amount of embodied carbon we might use through our material selections and tying all that together. So, but just one thing, just I know I've spent the last 2-3 minutes talking about net zero carbon and lowering carbon. I think it's important from a sustainability point of view is not to get stuck in the carbon tunnel vision. Now, it's a nice picture that we adapted from another source, but I think the idea is there's so many items that surround what does sustainability mean, what does good design look like, that it's easy to target on net zero carbon and bouncing between operational embodied carbon and energy efficiency and that, but there's so many other things that are involved with it. You know, there's the health and well-being side, there's social value, there's air and water pollutants, toxicity of how it all surrounds encompassing. So I think for us as, you know, acoustics, lighting and air quality people is trying not to get too targeted on the net zero carbon thing and understanding that it's still a wider range of goals that we need to look at. And just a final bit on sustainability certifications. A large part of what we look at in terms of the accreditation and the points and the metric scoring systems that we use to determine how workplaces and buildings and that, what their sustainability rating is, as it were. There's quite a few different systems out there, but a lot of what we look at for ourselves is the US Green Building Council's lead. So that's how green a building is. BREEAM, which looks at both the building energy use and the environmental aspects of that, along with the health and well-being of the occupants. And then there's the WELL certifications, which really focus on the well-being of the occupants. So those are kind of the 3 we tend to look at here in the UK, at least. And yeah. So moving on to some acoustic case studies. So yeah, acoustics and well-being. I think just first and foremost, yeah, thoughtfully designed acoustic environments help to reduce stress, improve concentration. I think we've all been there, be it in an office, in the workplace, at home, at school, wherever it may be. I think something we try to aspire to and we try to encourage is not just limiting the amount of noise, but also encouraging positive sounds. You know, how can we improve the soundscape? How can we enhance the environment around us? And that might be using natural, pleasant sounds, bird song, or even anonymous sound, just to cover up the sound of other discrete events that might disturb us, what we refer to as anonymous masking. And this is all kind of something we consider as part of our acoustic designs, because ultimately noise is a stressor. There's health impacts of it. It causes annoyance. There was a survey done by YouGov and Savills and the British Council for Offices a number of years ago, and it was looking at noise is a big factor in annoyance in the workplace, causes a lot of disturbance. So I think it's 20 minutes or so a day are lost to distraction for people working in open plan office places. So it's how can we use acoustics to, promote good health, promote healing, and give good support for, workplace and learning, concentration type activities. Now, looking at sustainability in acoustic design, how do these begin to interject beyond just the health and well-being side of things? So, short history lesson is from an evolutionary viewpoint. Hearing is one of our key survival mechanisms. It essentially allows us to listen out for danger even when we're sleeping. So, but leading up to today, you've got documents over the years such as the World Health Organization guidelines for noise and environmental noise guidelines. There was also a House Science and Technology Committee's inquiry from a few years ago that found that up to 130,000 healthy life years were lost in the UK because of noise pollution in 2018, and that 40% of the population remain exposed to harmful noise levels from traffic pollution. And also recently published was the Institute of Acoustics, Sustainable Building Acoustic Design Frameworks. This is beginning to really look at, what are we doing with regards to materials, embodied carbon, to take that next step on the sustainability journey. Yeah. Okay. And there's items in there as well. So how do you plan for sustainable design? It's things like avoiding over design, not doing too much, but still providing good acoustic requirements that are needed for use of the space. Specifying good materials, so natural recycled products. Does it have local production? Does it have a sustainable manufacturing process? And then what we've been doing at Cundall on the acoustics team is incorporating all of that within our zero carbon design 2030 milestones. So the progress so far is as part of all our projects now, we're proposing opportunities where carbon can be lowered. We're beginning to identify what's the embodied carbon values, so the kilograms of carbon dioxide per cubic meter for various materials. We're starting to benchmark that against what's best in market at the moment, so we can use those benchmarks to now target aspirational reductions. So really kind of pushing that and driving that with all our clients and the design teams. Got a case study here of how we're actively looking at this in another example. So, and how it all overlaps. So I spoke earlier about speech masking. So that's, you often see it in a lot of offices, either outside of private meeting rooms or within open areas where you've got the problem of you need good acoustic performance in those areas for occupant well-being and productivity. But the problem is if things are too quiet, you don't have what we call a noise floor. So you can hear you can hear private conversations happening. If you're trying to concentrate, you can hear lots of other people talking. It can disturb you. But if you increase the noise a little bit, it starts to cover that. So you don't notice it as much. Think of it similar as a waterfall or a nice wind and rustling the trees. You don't notice cars driving by as much. So it's how can you simulate that in an office place? Is the solution is speech or sound masking. So it's adding background sound. So installing a speakered system throughout an area that increases noise and it reduces the amount of distractions available. So that's the concept acoustically of speech masking and what the benefits are acoustic with regards to well-being and the occupant use. But then tying that into, I spoke earlier about certifications. Which is one of the certifications relating to occupant well-being, it suggests that to maintain speech privacy between private rooms and people outside a meeting room, so to avoid them listening to private conversations, rather than having a big bulky wall made of lots of plasterboard, lots of internal insulation. If you've got speech masking in place, that increases the noise a bit, makes things less disturbing, less able to overhear, and you can actually reduce the acoustic requirement of your walls. Now, the next step to that is, this is some research that us on the acoustics team have done over the last couple of years, is we've reviewed every single British gypsum partition wall requirement and what materials it's made up of, what's the acoustic performance, what's the sound insulation of it, and what's the relative embodied carbon per meter for those different wall systems. So if you look on the table to the right, we can show that in line with WELL, to still maintain speech privacy, you can reduce the wall partition requirements, the acoustic requirements, by 5 decibels, which in turn actually provides quite a large drop in the embodied carbon that a project would be using. So kind of the next step we're looking at now is how to calculate that for an entire floor plate, for an entire office, and really build it up there. I mean, we've had one project so far where we've actually done the quite detailed analysis of this, and the end story is actually there's quite a large saving, both in embodied carbon, but also in cost and build time. So which kind of really benefits the client and the contractor side too. So I'll hand over to Natalia now just to run through lighting. Case studies there.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks, Colin. So I will be talking about smart lighting design for better living. If we move to the next slide, please. So key aspiration for smart lighting design is in finding the fine balance between designing for people, designing for specific building, and designing for the environment. So the quality of light affects people's perception of space and impacts on their satisfaction, productivity, and sense of well-being. So we can say that smart lighting adds value, reduces carbon and costs, and enhances performance. So perceived quality of space is a multi-sensory experience where lighting plays an important role. Lighting influences the spatial experience by characteristics such as brightness, volume of architecture and open spaces, spaces for focus and concentration, and distribution of contrast between the light and shade. All the above combined creates a mood and feel of the space, and it's used to support our well-being through lighting design. Next slide, please, Colin. So what about the environment? Our sustainability approach is based on the following principles: good quality design. So a successful net zero design lighting must go beyond the energy efficiency and life expectancy. The quality of the lighting design will have a significant impact on the lifespan of its use, affecting its zero design and circularity. Adaptability of the lighting system, it's all about lighting outputs, layers, and distribution. It all must be flexible to allow for the variable functions and future-proofing. Lighting products should be capable of being dismantled to base components, to be upcycled or at least recycled and returned to materials reservoir. On each project, we allow for time for embodied carbon estimations, stating the benchmark in the luminaire schedules that we specify for each project. Actively participate in energy efficiency estimations for energy and sustainability project certificates like Part L, LEED, BREEAM, WELL certification, Masterdam, etc., etc. Next slide, please. So we truly believe that considering environmental impact of lighting system within luminaire specification must become a key part of every design process. This should also include a study on a retrofit and or reuse option for existing lighting system. For example, when we have a project, existing building with existing lighting, whether it's going to be brand new Cat A fit out with a brand new luminaires or 20 years old university with old luminaires. So before we start designing, we consider we talk to the client and we run the feasibility study to assess whether we can reuse the existing system, retrofit them, upgrade them, or maybe partly reuse them before we suggest something brand new. Next slide, please. On the next few slides, I would like to share with you a case study. It's a small project we applied all the design principles I have been talking about. So this is actually our Birmingham office in Cundall. On this slide, you can see our large meeting room, where we developed our design in a close collaboration with our acoustic team and utilized only the most environmentally friendly materials with lowest carbon impact. We also partnered with one of our partners, lighting manufacturers, who help us to complete the lighting scheme that includes lighting track. You can see on that picture. This is actually a lighting track constructed from offcuts of another lighting track, which was specified on another our project. So it was rescued from a skip on the site. During one of the site inspections, we saw that the contractor got the lighting tract, which is delivered on site in the 4 meters length. And obviously when they fit it in, they had some offcuts, like 1 meter, 2 meters of cuts, and they just didn't need it. They just put it in the skip. So we said, right, okay, that's not going anywhere. So it's been rescued and we reused it in our meeting room, which you can see on the picture. So the luminaires on within the track, it's a reused luminaires. We use them from our partner manufacturer showroom. So which been on show for a couple of years. Obviously, they've got new products to show in the showroom. So this is like 2 years old products which been used in the showroom. We just utilized in our meeting room. The actual luminaire, they use a tunable white lighting technology, implementing human-centric lighting, which mimics the daylight condition outside in terms of color changing and intensity, so which also align with our circadian rhythm and contributing to well-being. Lighting control system also utilize multi-sensor, which is reducing the light output based on the daylight available in the room and switches the lights off if the room is not in use. Next slide, please. This next one room, you can see it's actually the room we're sitting in, I believe. So we have a pendant luminaire, is a reused sample product which we had in our pool of our catalogs and the sample products we just reuse that one. So this particular product is utilizing the innovative design. Luminaire body is constructed entirely of wood. There is no screws. It's pine wood. That's a luminaire just hanging above our table as we speak. Material, it's a neat and natural feel, the lowest embodied carbon because it's wood. Also utilizing direct and indirect lighting, which contributes to well-being, human well-being. Next slide, please. So this is another meeting room where we have a pendant luminaire, again, reused sample product featuring the collaboration between the sustainability and technological innovation. So the luminaire made from hemp. So the luminaire body is extruded from bio-based polymer, which is biodegradable and compostable. I think it's the first in the market, that particular product in terms of materials. And again, for well-being contribution, it's using direct and indirect light with a high color rendering indicator, which contributes for human well-being. That's all from me. Next slide, please, Colin.
Thanks, Natalia. So, yeah, next slide, please. Yeah, so as air quality consultants, we've got limited opportunity for influencing material specification. But there's various opportunity we have to look at various aspects in terms of the design process and making sure that air quality is appropriately considered. So we're going to talk about these, and then next slide, please. So appropriate material specification. So ensuring we haven't got carbon tunnel vision, there's numerous aspects that need to be considered when we're advising on appropriate material. So we've at Cundall we've created a few passports for each of materials. So there's various things that feed into this. So as well as the origin of material and its embodied carbon. So if it's appropriately sourced, that could obviously help with the air quality emissions as well in terms of transport and manufacturing, the circularity and health and well-being. So for air quality, obviously a key thing is the health and well-being aspect, and are the materials there's nothing toxic low toxicity that's not going to off gas and create issues during occupation. And we sometimes look at materials inventory for proposed retrofitting or design of a space, and then we can advise on those whether there's another option that might be better. Next slide, please. So site setting. So ideally, we get involved as air quality consultants at early design stage, and then try and there's various opportunities to try and influence that positively then. So in terms of the site's layout and setting, so green infrastructure might think, oh, that could be great for carbon, but it needs to be appropriately placed. So it's looking at the wider setting of the site and trying to extend the distance between sources and receptors. And if it's inappropriately placed green infrastructure, it could actually make matters worse and lead to inhibit dispersion or lead to localized issues with air quality. And we could do dispersion modelling based on a proposed layout to predict what the concentrations might be at a facade, or we might do monitoring if something's already there's a proposed change to get us an idea on the baseline conditions. In terms of connectivity and travel, so it's key to have a broadband network and effective broadband network, so that people don't need to travel as commute as far, ideally, or community workspace hubs, so people might come together in spaces and they might minimize the travel time that then has an impact on air quality emissions. And obviously provision of cycle infrastructure and network to facilitate sustainable travel options. Next slide, please. So key for us as well is to give to try and influence the energy and ventilation design appropriately. So ideally, there's and we're luckily seeing this more and more all electric non-combustion plant energy strategy, but sometimes there might be standby generators. So it's trying to influence the options on that. So sometimes we get told there's 3 options that are going to be considered, and the team might be looking at it, or the client, in terms of the capital cost for a given generator, but then some of them might be a lower emitting option, and we need to demonstrate that, well, especially if there's a permit required further down the line, they have to demonstrate a best available technique. And could they perhaps look at other fuel options as well, like sustainably sourced HBO fuel? Also, what we can do is, well, if we do dispersion modelling for proposed design, we could look at the proposed air intakes for any ventilation and proposed openable windows and predict what the concentrations would be, and then feed into whether we fit the appropriateness of the ventilation strategy. Is filtration required for mechanical ventilation? And if it is required, is it the appropriate level of filtration? Because if we're over filtrating, that could lead to higher life cycle and maintenance costs. And ideally, there's the option to future-proof there. So it might be that natural ventilation might not be suitable at that time, but hopefully as air quality improves in the future, that will be an option. So ideally mixed mode solution. Next slide, please. So biophilia. So I mean, in our office, we've got a lot of indoor plants, and it's lovely for health and well-being. And it's whether these can have a positive influence on air quality as well. So it could be that through an impact on the humidity levels. So through the transpiration, the plant ends up being like a natural low energy humidifier. If you had an active green wall, you might use through the plants, increase the airflow through the soil. There might be a potential for reducing emissions there. So my colleague is Curtis Gubb has done some research on this with the University of Birmingham, and yeah, so it might be a negligible impact perhaps in a busy office with a lot of people, to have how we can reduce carbon dioxide concentrations, and it does impact. There is the influence of the amount of light as well. So if you overlit the space, then there's various things we need to consider. But there is, the potential to reduce carbon dioxide perhaps, and help the humidity levels, and perhaps also nitrogen dioxide through the soil. Next slide, please. So indoor air quality testing. So as a team, we regularly get involved with air quality testing, including indoor air quality testing. So we've done we've tested all of our Cundall office spaces. So that image there is just one of our offices, because I'm just going to talk to you about a case study, which is where we provided a loan of free monitoring equipment for a local charity. So instead of posting their image, which was at an office space that was very poorly ventilated and poorly lit, and they were concerns about health and well-being there. So we offered to loan the equipment for a couple of weeks to get an idea of what was going on. And it was found that the carbon dioxide levels were consistently very elevated, over 1,000 ppm. And also through the study, we noticed that the lights were regularly left on out of our office hours. So as well as having a look at the ventilation and what we could advise on improving that, there was also the option to look at the energy wasted through light, overuse of lighting. I think that's it. Next slide. Back to Colin, I think.
Yeah, thanks for that. So bring it all together. So really just summarize what we're doing. It's in the lens of sustainability, there's multiple things there. So it's not just lowering carbon, it's this health that and the well-being of the people using the space. You're looking at the materials, the circularity of it as well. So we're taking a holistic approach and a fully balanced view on this. We've also got some initiatives that we're driving through. We have our material database. So what we do, so us on a personal level within the company, we gather all the whole life carbon, circularity information, material health, but also where we can, operational energy, acoustic performance data on a huge number of materials that we can promote and discuss with, or also review what other things are being used and could we do better. We've also some other initiatives. I know Jenny touched on digital passports. That's a number of materials. Well, again, we're not just documenting what's the carbon view of it, but where's the material coming from? Is it circular? Is it recyclable? What's the health and well-being aspects of it, and how does it promote other certifications? In our London office and other offices as well, here's a picture of a library of lots of cool materials that we like and that we want to show off, and working with a lot of suppliers and manufacturers to help promote what they're doing. Little case study. Our sustainability team can give a much better talk on this, but I'll just touch on it very quickly. We've also got our new Cundall's new Edinburgh office that we moved into recently. I mean, as part of the design for that, we had initial targets for the upfront and the whole life embodied carbon of the projects. We had targets originally. We pushed them. Let's make it more aspirational. But then actually on practical completion, we found the actual numbers achieved were a lot lower than the initial targets and the aspirational targets as well. And part of the reasons for that is, just being quite smart about, how much stuff can we reuse from our previous office and bring over? So, can we refurbish meeting room chairs? Can we bring across sofas? Very careful dismantling of existing glazed partitions used for office spaces and moving that to different spaces. A lot of work involved with the contractors to really discuss the process for that and how to retain the quality of these things when we're carrying them over. But lots of stuff to reuse, lots of low carbon material choices, and this is all brought through our all the work we've had together as a as a wider company throughout all the different disciplines. It's looking at what cool materials can we use, what's circular, what's got recycled content, tiles, paneling, paint that's being used, do they have low VOCs to also contribute to that better indoor air quality for all the occupants. So yeah, just so really just now wrap it all up, just to summarize kind of what we've been through. I think just these are kind of just the final thoughts on these things is, yeah, I think it's important for us to actually focus on achieving actual health and well-being benefits, and not just for sake of gaining BREEAM or WELL or LEED certifications, is just doing box ticking exercises. I think we really need to have a structured and planned approach for how we're doing all of this. And I think from us as individual specialist designers, we can, with all the best will in the world, we can push for it as much as we can. But ultimately, we need to work with the rest of the design team, with the architects, the contractors, to kind of be able to do that. But also, there isn't any real kind of legal requirement or legislative legislation for us to really push us to do that, to require us to do that. So at the end of the day, what we need really is, top-down approach. It's got to be the client themselves saying, we want to be low carbon, we want to have good health, we want to have good well-being, and we want all of that to combine. And by those key decision makers kind of setting that up front, then then they can really drive that and allow us to deliver that. So yeah, thank you very much. We can probably open up to Q&A now.
Thank you so much, Colin, and obviously Jenny and Natalia. That was really great having all three of you here. It's like the crack team of like acoustics, air quality, and lighting. And I've certainly got office envy now. I'm sure most of our attendees also have office envy of Cundall's offices. So yeah, thanks again. If you haven't already put a question in the chat and you'd like to do so, now's your time. We have got a few coming through already, but I'll just start with one of my own. I'll take the chair's prerogative on that. So I was just thinking, obviously, the government is certainly hoping for a bit of a development boom. And in terms of ensuring that we're not locking in a development wave that is being, or ensuring that we are locking in a development wave that is being built with good acoustics, lighting, and air quality design, how optimistic do you think that's going to, how optimistic are you that that will happen? If you're not optimistic, what do you think needs to change? I think this very much ties into what you were saying at the end there, Colin, in terms of there's no actual legal requirement or legislation for this, and it's really reliant on clients saying we want to have, low carbon, good well-being in our buildings, like design principles for our buildings. So yeah, how do we actually ensure that it happens?
I mean, I'm somewhat optimistic because you're starting to see, things like net zero carbon. Everyone's talking about it. It's at the forefront of everybody's mind. So, and even if you look around you, I think you've got, say, the City of London Corporation. They've got their new planning requirements that ultimately they have a retrofit first policy. I think any building that's any new building or kind of fit out that's being proposed, it's, first and foremost, can we reuse our existing building stock rather than knock it down and build again? Or if you're going to take that approach, you have to provide a very good justification for it. And then on the internal side on say the internal air quality, the lighting design, the acoustic design, a lot of anyone who wants to rent out a building, ultimately, I think a lot these days, I think the market itself in terms of demand is demanding a better quality of supply. If you're a landowner, building owner, and you've got a very poor performing building, you don't have the good certifications in place to show off that, you're less likely to rent that out or be able to rent it out for a good rate. So I think there's certainly demand from it from all sides. I think. For Jenny and Natalia, had any view on that?
Yes, definitely. So sometimes we have been asked in the past by within the industry, say, for example, if we specify something with low carbon, and then when it gets to be installed, the alternative were proposed, and sometimes these alternative manufacturers are claiming we match all the criteria, and they're saying, sometimes they're even saying there is no policy, you can't check it. We say, well, eventually we will find out, and next time we're definitely not going to specify that particular product. So you're right, there is no policy, but there is a way that people will eventually find out what is better, what is not, in terms of environment, in terms of carbon. And while there is no policy, it's just on the long run, it's just a reputation, I would think, probably what plays the key role at the moment. But I know that in Europe there is a certification, or at least like a proposing certification for the product design, which is focused on the environment. So it's not in place yet, but I'm hoping that some policies will address this issue.
And then I guess for air quality, when we might be looking at specifying what's being specified in terms of a product, the one that would be relevant there would be if there needed to be standby generators, and then we may have to do a economic damage cost analysis. So the client might think, oh well, that one has a lower capital cost, but when you actually look, if it's more emitting and they're having to pay a damage cost for that, then it helps incentivize a better option.
Okay, great. Thanks all three of you. I'm going to move on to the questions that we've had in the Q&A function. So we've got one from Daniel Vallis that says, have you experienced difficulties in realizing these approaches with a client/design team that doesn't see sustainability as a priority? And if so, how did you overcome these challenges? So I guess open to any of the three of you, whoever wants to jump in first.
Well, I'll just say sometimes the main challenge is that might have got involved late. We weren't at the party to start with, and well, for us, for air quality, maybe that's been the design has already evolved quite a bit, and then they're saying, can you tell us what the impact of this design is? And ideally, we need to be there at early design stage. So we're always trying to plug that. And the benefit of being part of a multidisciplinary company is that they're aware of us and they can try and get us involved early.
Yeah, it's a lot of legwork as well. It's really us, in terms of the decision-making process on, does the client want to be sustainable? We might not get involved, we can't intercept their thoughts on that, but we can kind of show a lot of examples like, hey, there's a lot of good things you can do here. We can do a lot of conversations with the manufacturers, suppliers, contractors, other designers, architects as well, to kind of get a wider view on it. Because I think ultimately, we all want to do it. I think it's just finding out what's the mechanism for allowing that. But also, at the end of the day, the view we've got with our ZCD 2030 approach at Cundall is ultimately by the end of 2030, if we have clients who do not want to be sustainable or to be on this journey with us, it's maybe that's not someone we should be partnering with anymore.
And also, when I mentioned one of our slides, we did say at every design stage, when we start designing, we do speak to the client and trying to find out, we're trying to perform the feasibility study, saying, is it an option to reuse things? How far the client would be willing to go in terms of sustainability? Because quite often these days, sustainable design, more lower carbon design is more expensive compared to other options, and it depends on the client, depends on the project, and sometimes clients saying, yes, I'm willing to pay more, but I'll have to make sure that the design is sustainable. And in that case, a client we know the position of the client, we design everything as per client's request, and we design the best in terms of sustainability. And it's usually the case when the project is complete, when it's on site, clients quite often come back to us saying, can you go and check whether whatever it is installed now or about to be installed exactly has been designed? And this is usually the case. If it's from the very beginning of the project, there is a key aspiration to have the project as sustainable as possible. or certain level of sustainability, we'll have to make sure that it's actually delivered.
I mean, I know our sustainability team, there was a local project here in Birmingham that they were looking at, and it was trying to make use retain a lot of the materials, whether that was feasible to do that. And just, I think it was I can't remember the percentage, but it was quite an impressive percentage that they did manage to retain. And the sustainability colleague was a bit trying to get 100%, but that could be quite tricky to do. But it's just trying to look at what can be retained.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes you can have a project where it's quite old, and even a client wants to keep as much as possible or repair as much as possible. We'll run sustainability study and just saying it will sometimes repairing something will have more carbon impact than something new.
Yes.
So it is important. You have to have a look how much carbon or how sustainable you would be if you go for that route, and then you have option something completely new, and then you have to decide which option is more feasible for that particular project.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, it sounds like, and it's obviously common sense, right, that cost will be that kind of number one barrier to a lot of clients, or at least the concern that it's going to cost more. And I guess it's for, just thinking about others on the call who might want to trying to persuade clients that they're working with in some capacity to go down a more sustainable route, and just like what are the kind of like tools and the evidence that they can use to convince people that it is kind of worth it. But yeah, anyway, I better move on because we've got a few more questions and we only have less than 15 minutes. So a question from Sophia Beglinger, and it's for Jenny. Did you find that the charity you lent the indoor air quality monitors to made any changes in light of the findings?
Well, we gave them recommendations that they said they were going to take on board. I mean, we haven't actually gone to visit them since, but they were quite grateful of the advice and the time. Because so fortunately it was somewhere local to our office in Birmingham. We could walk over and lend some equipment and go back again, because that was like a pro bono service. So yeah, we haven't really had the opportunity to follow up on how it's going, but I think it might be a nice idea to do that, actually, to see if things have improved for them, whether still got any issues.
It does sound like a really good kind of sort of like awareness raising tool, and something that, I'm just thinking about kind of like Clean Air Day, which does tend to focus a lot on outdoor air quality, but also I think, there's Clean Air Night winners with wood burners, which I guess is their main focus on indoor air quality, but could be something to tie into kind of Clean Air Day, this kind of giving out of monitors. I think, could be really good. Cool. So next question from Esteban Olmos. For acoustics, so this one will be for Colin. Have you used the low carbon principles to quantify the carbon body on an environmental (external) noise assessment? Do you find there is sufficient data to do this? One second. Do you find there is sufficient data to do this compared to the built environment?
Well, short answer is yes. Particularly if let's say you've got somewhere where you're installing lots of mechanical plant and building services, and they're producing a lot of noise emissions, and you need to mitigate the noise to comply with whatever requirement there may be. Now you've got, in terms of acoustic interventions, you've got inline attenuators, silencers, acoustic louvers to go around compound areas. So what we're starting to see, there's a lot of feedback we're getting from manufacturers and suppliers, is they're starting to produce their embodied carbon data. They're producing EPDs, environmental product declarations, for their stuff, and so it's able to be done. And I think part of it as well is for us and for everyone in the industry to really be pushing, as a minimum, if you've got a product available, you need to have an EPD for it. So, at least then we can at least consider it as part of these further assessments. And, and if you don't have one, maybe we'll recommend someone else who does have them. So that's kind of the positive pressure we can put on it.
Thanks, Colin. And then a question for Natalia. Is product as a service a common approach in the lighting industry, and do you see clients adopting this procurement route?
the product, like I'm saying, we truly believe that when we specify product, it's very important at the design stage to compare a few options between they can have a technical performance in terms of amount of light it's producing. It could be the same, but where it's built, what materials are used to build the product, it's the key. Because if you take a product, it's relatively small compared to, let's say, an air handling unit or something large equipment. But in each building, you have loads of this, and the embodied carbon could be reduced by many tons and kilograms. Just to swap the option between the specification of the product. So yes, and we do show it in our design, and we quite often before we specify the product finally, we just illustrate it to the client and explaining why we suggest in that particular product compared to other, which is more commonly used, or let's say sounds like everybody using it, but yeah, if you don't look at the specification, you may not even know what you're missing out about.
Brilliant. Thanks, Natalia. So I think I'll just end kind of returning to a bit of the discussion we were having earlier. And maybe if we could go like Colin, Natalia, Jenny, and if you could maybe just quickly give, like, imagine you're giving advice to someone who's trying to convince a client or someone that they're working with to go through this path of sustainable design. Maybe they're concerned about the costs. Like, what advice would you give that person, kind of like in your own specialism, on how to make the case for good like acoustic or good air quality or good lighting design? So if we go to Colin first.
Oh, gee. Well, I'd probably just tell them that, look, we have there is a structured approach to it. Lots of people are doing it. We've got lots of kind of our end clients and others and contractors who can speak for it as well, and kind of show that we're all in this journey together. So there's not really an excuse anymore not to do it. I mean, there are excuses, but there's not that many good excuses anymore not to do it. So I think that's part of the story there. I think it's that lots of other people are doing it. We can get them as well to tell the good stories and give that feedback. So come on, let's go.
Thanks, Colin. And Natalia?
I would say that the key message I would say to the client, to the designers, to colleagues, and a good quality lighting is the key. So when we're talking about sustainability, if we specify a good lighting scheme which will last long, which can be adaptable, which can be repaired, which can be reused, and the key thing, the lighting itself, it's really good. So people are happy in the space with the lighting, so they're less likely would want to change it 3 years later, or if it's not repairable, you don't have to take the things out 5 years later, put everything new in. So the good lighting design, smart lighting design, like any other disciplines, any other smart design, is the key. So it may cost at the day one a little bit more than alternative, but it will last longer. People will be much more happy in the space, and it's repairable. And they feel that we're saving the planet, really. So by the good smart design, we're reducing carbon, we're saving planet. So it's a impact on well-being as well.
Yeah, and I guess for air quality, the key thing is that health and well-being is, which is more and more on the agenda. It needs to be more. It's important for obviously everybody. And then if you're thinking in particular of a workplace setting, then it's the benefit to the employer there, that their staff are happy and their products got good productivity, that the air qualities, indoor air qualities, nice setting. Yeah.
Thanks all, and hopefully if you are on this call and you are in that situation of needing to, we're trying to make the case, hopefully this webinar will kind of serve as a bit of a resource as well. it is going to be, well, it's being recorded, as I said, and it'll be uploaded to the IS YouTube channel. So hopefully you can kind of return to this and use this as a bit of a resource in making the case as well. But that brings us to the close of this webinar. Thanks everyone so much for your questions and for your time. And obviously thanks very, very much to Colin, Jenny and Natalia for giving up your time and for such a clear and brilliant presentation and for taking all those questions. So yeah, that's it, everyone. I hope you have a brilliant rest of your day.